Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Today I want to share with you some brush foiling. So let's go ahead and get started on my card today. I will be using this die set from Cat Scrappiness. This is the uppercase condensed alpha die set. All the supplies, everything I'm using, will be listed and linked down in the description box as well. Now, I love using this die set to create customized sentiments and cards for people that I am sending them to. So this one was actually for my kiddos to give to their grandma for Mother's Day, and they call her Nana. So I went ahead and die cut several N's and several A's. I'm going to go ahead and cut 3 thick for each letter. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the top one of each letter, and using my hot foil gel, which is from the Crafter's Workshop, I'm going to use a foam brush and just brush on this gel from the bottom up. What I like to do is go ahead and dip my foam brush into that hot foil gel and get a little bit of product just on the very tip of that foam brush. Then, starting off the edge of that piece of cardstock that I'm working on, my die cut, I like to go ahead and put my foam brush down and then just come up from the bottom in very swiping and flicking motions. I'm not going over the whole die cut, just the very edge up towards the top, and then lifting up about halfway through. Now you can use a brush for this, but I find for me the foam brush actually works a lot better for this technique, and it gives me better results. Now with this, you are going to need to let that gel dry. It doesn't take but a few minutes because it is such a thin layer. So I set it off to the side and let it dry while I worked on other things, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to skip around a little bit and I'll show you how to finish this off. You'll know the gel is dry whenever it goes clear. Goes on white, dries clear. Super simple. Then, whenever it's dry, go ahead and start making your sandwich for the foiling. I like to use a piece of computer paper that's folded in half. I lay my die cuts in there with the gel facing up, and then put a piece of foil on top of those, shiny side, pretty side facing up. Close that sandwich, and then we're going to run it through our laminator or ink machine. I use the Royal Sovereign laminator. I like to get it as hot as I can, so I put it on that 5 mil and I let it heat up for a good 15-20 minutes. So while I'm doing my die cutting and getting that gel on, I'm letting that heat up the entire time. Now I have my sandwich ready to go. My laminator's heated up, so all I need to do is feed this through. I like to go with the folded side going in first so it doesn't get caught and jam up on me. Then I pull it out, let it cool for a few seconds. This gel is super strong when it goes through, so you don't need to run it through twice. Once is good enough, and then you can go ahead and start pulling these out, and you have this gorgeous half foiled with brush strokes in it. I absolutely love the look of these. Now with that gel, you might have a little bit that transfers onto the sides or the back, and when you run that through your laminator, it could get stuck to the underneath paper. Just pull it up. It's not that big of a deal. It's just little pieces holding it down. Now I did this on white cardstock, which is gorgeous. However, you could do this on patterned paper, colored cardstock, even some ink blended cardstock that you die cut too, for really, really fun looks that are this half brush stroke foiled whenever you're finished with them. I love the way this turned out. So in the comments on my last video, I had several who said, I love the technique, but I don't have a laminator or I don't have that gel. So I sat down and I thought about it, and I came up with a way that you can do this technique without the gel I used, without a laminator, without any heat source at all. All you need is a glue, a paintbrush, cardstock, and some foil. Now the foil I'm going to be using is Deco foil. You can find it at many places online. I will leave links down in the description box below. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut out my thanks die cut. This is from Heavy Doodle from some white cardstock. Now you can use any color of cardstock. You can also just use plain cardstock that you cut out with the paper trimmer. You don't need to die cut this. I just like the look of this technique on a sentiment die cut. So once that's done, it's time to go ahead and start the foiling process. What you are going to need is a glue that remains tacky once it is dry. I'm going to be using the Mono Multi-Liquid Glue because it is so readily available at tons of craft stores and online, and it's fairly inexpensive. It's only about $4 or $5. However, there are many glues on the market that remain tacky once they're dry. This is a permanent and also a removable bond. So what you want to do is put that glue on and let it completely dry. Once it dries, it's going to be a little bit sticky and tacky, and it will hold on to that foil. So what I want to do here to get it onto my die cut is squirt a little bit out onto a scrap piece of paper. I suggest working either on a scrap piece of paper, parchment paper, wax paper, something that is going to easily be thrown away because this is going to get a little messy, and also something that this will release easily from. Now what you want to do is dip your paintbrush into that glue and kind of load it up like you would any other kind of paint. Then I like to just start from the bottom and drag the paintbrush towards myself. So I turn my die cut a little bit around and then work from the bottom and pull away as I come towards the top. I also like to start off the edge of the die cut. That way I don't get any big loops. So if I have any of those on my paintbrush, it's going to go onto that scrap piece of paper and not onto my thing's die cut. Then once I get about halfway up, I just pull up my brush and leave those brush stroke marks in there. This is going to be hard to see, but I promise it is on there. Then just set it aside to dry. It only takes a few seconds because it is such a thin layer. Now, once it's dry, it's time to add the foil. You can see it's really tacky, so just be careful while you're handling it. And then go ahead and get your piece of foil out. This is a great way to use up those foil scraps. I am using the copper foil from Deco Foil. It's my favorite kind of foil, the Deco Foil line. And then I just place it right on top of that die cut and press it down with my finger. Now I'm going to use the squeegee tool from Imagine Crafts. This is not necessary whatsoever. Your finger will do perfectly fine. A bone folder will do perfectly fine. I just like the rubber edge on this, but you can also use a spatula from your kitchen if you want that rubber edge. It's not going to dull the foil as much as your bone folder will. So once I get that pressed down, I can go ahead and remove that extra foil. It will stick a little bit to your surface if you have some glue that transferred to the back, but just be gentle when you pull it up and it will all come up. Then you have this beautifully foiled with the brushstroke texture still in there and that distressed look as well, but all you need was some glue in the foil. Now, if you don't have a rubberized tool, any kind of tool, and you go in with plastic, just know that that will dull your foil a little bit like I did here. It's still very shiny, still very pretty, and it's a different look, but it will dull it just a little bit if you rub it too much with a piece of plastic or a plastic bone folder. So if you have something rubber or just your finger, it's going to do the trick. But I absolutely love the way this one turned out, and you don't need the heat from a laminator to make it work either. When I was die cutting my Thanks sentiment, I also die cut it 2 more times from plain white cardstock, and I built those up just by layering them one on top of the other and gluing them together. That gives me a nice dimensional effect with this sentiment, and I don't have to add any foam to the back, which would be kind of hard to do with all the very intricate pieces. Then for that last layer, I just add a little bit more glue using that same Tombow multi-glue, and this time applying it right when it's wet, and that's going to give me that permanent bond. I just layer those die cuts one on top of the other, align them with my fingers, and then you can set an acrylic block on top to make sure they dry nice and tight. Finally, I attached that Thanks die cut onto my panel. I used my T-square ruler. You can use any ruler you have on hand to make sure it's nice and straight and even on the card. And then that finished off the card. The only thing left to do was to attach that panel to an A2 side folding card base that I made from white cardstock. Super simple and easy. Now, at the beginning of this video, I also showed you the Tacky When Dry gel medium. This works too if you have that medium on hand or something similar to it. You can see these both work really well. Play around with what you have on hand. If you have a tacky glue already, like Eileen's Tack It Over and Over, that would work really well as well. Play with what glues you have on hand and have fun foiling with the stuff you already have in your craft room. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and another look at the ways you can achieve the brushstroke foiled look on your cards. Thanks for watching today, and happy crafting, everyone!